In this video, we're going to talk about the evidence of the biblical Nephilim in all cultures and religions among planet Earth. Many people will go off and claim that the events told in the Bible are fictional or far-fetched, but the events can be verified by extra scriptural texts found in other cultures and religions that have nothing to do with the Bible. Before we get into the world history of the Nephilim, I'm going to point out some of the biblical stories that are verified in other cultural religious texts found among the world. Let's look at the Great Flood narrative, for instance. Many religions on the earth have a Great Flood epic, describing their lead deity flooding the earth in a form of divine retribution for the sins of humankind. The Chinese, the Egyptians, the Hindus, the Arabs, the Mesoamericans, the Babylonians, etc. I'm not going to cover these stories right now because they are a video in and of themselves, but I will give another example of things documented in scripture that has tangible evidence to prove the legitimacy of the stories told in the Bible. The IP word papyrus of a scribe in ancient Egypt. This scroll is completely independent of the Bible, but gives an extra eyewitness account to the so-called Great 10 Plagues of Egypt narrative told in Exodus. When reading this text, it outlines all 10 biblical plagues of Egypt to a perfect T, and it is obvious that the scribe writing these things down was writing the events of Exodus in the same manner that our modern-day news reporters report daily news occurrences to us. As I said about the Great Flood narrative in all religions, this 10 Plagues narrative is something that I feel should be outlined in its own video. So for now, we are going to talk about the biblical Nephilim and their link to all cultures and religions around the world. The other day, I was doing some research on some of the gods in Hinduism to see if I could find this Nephilim link, and I looked at the Hindu goddess Kali. And I remembered hearing about her story before in history, and how many people in the areas of India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and many other countries in that area had great reverence for this four-armed deity. So I looked up some artwork of what this deity looked like, and I noticed something in a few of the pictures that came up in the search. First of all, look at how ferocious and hellish this thing looks. Second of all, let me point out the myth associated with these depictions of Kali. Apparently, she was having a bloodbath, killing a lot of people, and then her husband, Shiva the Destroyer, lays down before her feet to calm her down. When I looked closer at these pictures, I noticed something very interesting yet chilling. She's wearing a necklace of human heads. Now look at the size of the human heads compared to the size of her own face. Look at Shiva underneath her feet, and look at the head she's holding in her hand. They look so much bigger than the human heads contained on Kali's necklace. I mean, based off of the 1:6 ratio and the difference of the size of the human faces compared to Kali's face, I think it's safe to estimate that Shiva, Kali, and the severed head that she's holding in her hand were probably 20 to 25 feet tall in appearance. I mean, her face was probably the size of a residential window. Mind-blowing, huh? The Hindu goddess Kali wasn't the only Nephilim link to other religions and cultures I found. There are more. Many of you probably heard of the stories of the Cyclops in Greco-Roman religion and mythology. They were a race of one-eyed giants that terrified mankind according to legends and myth, eating the people and just being downright horrifying to the seeds of humans on the earth. The ancient walls of Egypt contain pictures of people with much higher stature than regular humankind. The Mesoamerican ruins have depictions of giant humanoid beings. The Sumerians worshipped giants as their kings or gods. And many of your fairy tales that you grew up hearing over the years contain folklore of giants. Scientists have proven that giants were a thing that existed, and even found archaeological evidence such as bones and structures that confirm such an ancient reality of oversized people. I believe that all these cultural depictions of giants in all cultures were eyewitness accounts and paintings of things that men and women were actually seeing at the time. These eyewitnesses seen these things, these beings, and decided to serve them as either gods or fight them as the demons that they were whenever the Nephilim sought to harm mankind for their own pleasure. It is a lot of things going on in the world that minds can't conceive. We know that the Nephilim were descendants of fallen angels. This was the reason they had such higher knowledge of the universe compared to ordinary humans. The angel DNA contained in the genes of the giants allow for their spirits to continue to shape history, entire kingdoms, and religious beliefs for millennia after the original Nephilim died off. And it is for this reason we have thousands of religions, and some atheists who even believe that the world religious beliefs of these gods can be traced back to ancient aliens from other dimensions and planets. But I believe without a doubt that it was the children of the fallen angels, aka the Nephilim, aka the giants. What do you think?